players have families coming to watch the game, flying in, and then lo and behold, the day before it gets canceled. It's hard. It's a big letdown. I could see where in case of football, where you lead up to the game, you have such a buildup, and football is so much more of a buildup than basketball. It's a lot easier to go out and play a basketball game than it is a football game, but you could see where it's tough on the guys. It's tough on the coaches. I mean, the coach that has to do the scout and spends all that time trying to put things together, and then at the last minute things get things don't go the way you thought they were going to go. And it's hard when we haven't lost a game. We've lost 6 games in the league, and it hasn't been because of us, which it goes back to a credit to the players, our support staff, the program and school in general for just continuing to just be diligent and cautious with what we do. And as this continues to go on, it's gotten a lot harder. Like I said, just mentally, more so than physically, I think for everybody. The bubble is real, and it's and there's COVID fatigue, which hopefully if our guys are excited to be able to still play. I'm not sure that's the case. You watch some of these games on TV right now. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of teams that want the season to be over with. I still think our guys want to play. We know we have a tough challenge going to Logan, playing against a Utah State team that's playing well, that's playing for something. I mean, they know that they can't have any blips on the radar screen as they try to make their way towards the NCAA tournament. So we expect their best, and after we finish that game, then we'll make our way on to UNLV. Probably will need to make sure I get a couple cups of coffee for that one with the 9:00 start. Hopefully Tracy can make it through that one as well. But just looking for the opportunity to play against one of the better defensive teams in the country in Utah State. I'm not sure if you're really looking at the players in college basketball. I'm not sure maybe if there's 5 guys in the country that impact winning as much as Cada. His ability to dominate on the defensive end of the floor, and then what he's kind of turned into since the Boise State series, where he's averaging almost close to 30 points a game over the last 4 games. I mean, you can tell he's really turned it up. He knows what they're playing for. And so we got a tough challenge with him. And then you add, the other pieces of the puzzle for him. And, Bean's a guy that, having scrimmaged Utah State when I was at Northern Colorado twice, and just seeing how he's come from a freshman to now. I mean, I'm not sure there's a guy in a player in the country that plays with as much effort. He's a guy that when you sit there and say with our guys, when we want to rebound at 80% or better, when the shot goes up, if you're an offensive guy that crashes, we want to be 80% or better. We want at 10 times that shot goes up, you better have gone 8 times, and you better have gone like you wanted to get the rebound. You better have gone 50-50. And Bean's probably a 90% guy. He's just a guy that just makes so many winning plays. And so they're a team where I told our guys, I mean, I'm not sure we're there yet where we can match their discipline and effort. That's what we pride ourselves on, but they're also probably from a discipline standpoint, a top 10 team in the country. I mean, they're not going to beat themselves, but it's a good gauge to kind of see where we're at, and looking forward to getting to Logan and playing the game. Cats.
You guys have been playing these, 2-game series the last few months. Now you've got kind of a normal scenario. How does preparation kind of change when you're not preparing for the same team 2 games in a row and you have this quick turnaround?
Well, I mean, it's back to, really in the 2-game series, I mean, you're preparing for the first game. I mean, you don't know what the team's maybe is going to do. Now in the case where now we're in March, I mean, we got a pretty good idea of what Utah State's going to try to do. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, they're going to try to get the ball in Cada about 70% of the times down the floor. Defensively, we know what they're going to do. Now it's just a matter of, can you score and can you stop them from scoring? So, with us having 13 days off, it's, maybe allows us to, tinker with the thing here or there, but at the same time, I mean, it's more about us, and I mean, we're not at a point where we can trick the game up. And so it's not like we're going to come out and try to do something new and different, to try to trick them. I mean, they're a team that you're not going to trick. So just going to go out there and just try to give it our best and see what happens. Tracy.
as opposed to the women's team, which is going to go close to 4 weeks without playing a game before they get to the tournament. To get to play these 2 games, if you're going to lose them, I guess it's good to have 2 games now to at least try to sharpen up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I mean, because I said it feels like we haven't played forever. We've had some of these stretches here where you have 13 or 14 days off, and it's just there's only so much you can do in practice. And so they have the opportunity to play the games, unlike the girls' team. I think it'll definitely help us. Losing out those 2 games against San Jose State, I mean that was tough, especially when it comes to seeding and the standings. Those are 2 games that we needed. Not to say that that we were going to win those games, but at least you gave yourself a chance. And so now we just got to try to go out and see what we can do against Utah State, and then UNLV come Saturday, and just see what happens from a seeding standpoint and a standing standpoint. But it's good to play. I mean, you can feel it kind of winding down to a certain degree, but the guys are still hungry to play, and that's a good sign.
Is there any chance you could add a game next week just to kind of keep things going before you go to the tournament, or is that out of the question?
No, that's out of the equation. I mean, by the time we get down there, I mean, playing on Saturday night at midnight and turning back around, I mean, I don't think that it doesn't do us any good to play another game in between. So no, we'll just make our way to Vegas and see what happens. Davis.
Jeff, I know it's weird to ask. I mean, since you guys have played 21 games, but do you expect to have to sort of knock off some rust coming off almost 2 weeks without playing?
No, there's no question. I mean, 2 weeks of not playing, and when you play a game like New Mexico where they press a bunch, they zone a bunch, and it's not maybe necessarily your normal game. There's a lot of different rhythms and flows to those games. And so to kind of be in a game for the first time against, and we had, Colorado State, you played Colorado State in early February. We only played 4 games in the month of February. And so you play Colorado State twice, and then you turn around and then you don't play for basically 13 days because the Utah State series gets canceled. So now you're going up against, New Mexico. Now you got another 13 days off. So it just feels like you're starting from scratch. I mean, it feels like you're just trying to figure out, okay, this is what we do against man. This is what we do against certain ball screen coverages. This is what we're trying to do. And so you almost have to really simplify some things and really just kind of get to the core of what you want to try to do and just try to go out and just play as hard as you can. I mean, that's really what it's boiled down to now. Michael.
Does Cada remind you of anybody historically?
No, I mean, he's unique. I mean, it's funny. You sit there and you watch him on film, whether that's against Mensa, Warren Washington, and knowing how big those guys are. Warren Washington's being a 7 foot and 225 pounds, and you sit there and you watch them and on TV, and Cada makes those guys, it makes Washington look like he's 6'9", 185 pounds. And so you don't really appreciate the size and length of Cada until you see him up close in person. Remember when he was a freshman, we played against him in a scrimmage when I was at UNC, and I was like, man, where did this guy come from? Because he was just, you don't see very many guys in college that look like that. And then to have his timing, his length, his second jump, his ability to impact the ball on the ball screens, he just allows them to be elite defensively. And Craig does a really good job of funneling the ball to him and allowing him to play to his strengths. I never saw Ralph Sampson play. I was too young, so I don't know. Purvis Ellison, maybe. Davis.
Jeff, is there any chance that Owen and or Kenny plays again this year, or are they done?
No, it's highly unlikely as of right now. So we're not planning or preparing for them to play as of right now. I mean, something would have to happen, but there's no reason right now to rush those guys back or get those guys back unless they're 110%, not 100. And so as of right now, we're not expecting them. Davis.
Jeff, I know you've been asked a lot this year about Marcus's play on the court, but I'm just curious, going back to his recruitment, how did you guys first discover him? And what do you think it was about the relationship you guys built that allowed him to, or made him choose you guys over maybe some other mid or high major programs that were recruiting him?
Well, I mean, first off, you have to give credit to, Ken DeWeese, my assistant, who, when we were at UNC and then here now, I mean, he's from Texas. When I was an assistant coach at my previous places, I mean, Texas was a place you felt like you could go in. There's enough players, and if you do a good job, I mean, you can find some guys and get some guys that maybe you're not supposed to get just because there's so many players down there, and especially the Houston area. I mean, Houston's so big. I mean, for anybody that's been there, it takes you about 3 hours to drive from one end to the other. And so if you know the right people and you can get on the right guys, and Coach DeWeese being from Texas and the relationships that he has down there, allowed us to kind of jump on him really early, because he didn't play his junior year of high school because he had transferred schools. And so we kind of knew about him before anybody else. And Coach DeWeese did a good job of developing that relationship. And then during the summertime, he played on one of the more high profile AAU teams, James Harden's team out of the AAU team out of Houston. And he had a good summer, not a great summer. I mean, I think there's a lot of people watching. But for whatever reason, he wasn't maybe number one on their list. Kind of a lot like when I recruited Lillard at Weber. I mean, he played so well, especially towards the end of the summer of his going into his senior year. But by that time, a lot of the Pac-12 schools, the Mountain West schools, they had already been recruiting some other guys in their first or second spot for so long that, they're not going to move a guy up. And so that's where we were able to take advantage of Lillard, with the fact that we were the first ones to offer him, the first ones that recruited him, the ones that recruited him the hardest. And I think the same thing happened with Marcus, is that he knew that, we were there for the get-go. When he didn't play maybe as good as he thought he was going to play in the summertime, we were still there. And then the fact that the success that our guards had at UNC, Jordan Davis, Andre Spite, when he can come in on a visit and watch film of those guys and see how they play, and then see where, the system, what it did for them and allowed them to, do what they're doing now. It made it a pretty easy sell. And then when I got the job here, his mom, the relationship that she had with us, knowing that, we were, she wanted, Marcus around, people like Coach DeWeese and myself that were going to hold him accountable and coach him hard. And so it was a pretty, easy decision for him to follow us to Wyoming, and also knowing too that there was a great opportunity for playing time. And that's in guys that really want to play. And that's the one thing Lillard never wanted to, he didn't want to sit in as a freshman. He wanted to play. He saw his older brother who went to junior college to play football, sat. You saw how miserable he was. He was like, I'm going someplace where I know I'm going to play. And I think that's the same case with Marcus, is that he wanted to go someplace where, he knew he was going to have to work, but he knew that when you look at the roster, there was a lot better chance of him playing here than maybe some other places.
So you didn't worry a whole lot once you got the job at Wyoming that you might lose him, he might go somewhere else?
I mean, there's always a chance. I mean, especially based off of, he had a tremendous senior year. He was going to be a first-team All-State player in Texas. Their team was probably going to win the state championship. They were in the Final Four. They were the best team going in. One of his high school teammates plays a lot of minutes as a freshman at the University of Houston. And so, there's always a chance. I mean, you're always worried. I mean, that's just the nature of being the head coach and thinking somebody's going to come in. But, when you have the right relationship and you have a real relationship where, this was upfront and honest with them. And I said, he knew how we were going to play and how we were going to utilize them. And he knew that was going to be the best fit. And that's usually the guys that could see past all the other BS and make a decision based off the best fit and not what's cool. Because it's not cool once you go to one of those bigger schools and you sit, your entire freshman year and sophomore year watching somebody else play. And so when you come to a place like, Wyoming, where now he's going to probably have played upwards, he's averaging 32, 33 minutes a game. You add, the 800 and 900 minutes that he's played as a freshman, with some of those other guys that might have been more highly touted that went to maybe Power 5 schools. Well, he's just passed all those guys up. And so he knew that, and luckily we were able to capitalize on that.